and welcome to another episode of the Marco Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am back after taking the month of July off just to regroup, refocus, and relax. We just all need that sometimes. And my original plan actually was just to take a break from like everything else, just my business and trying to figure out where I wanted to go with that and still focus on the podcast and still create new episodes for you all. But there's an episode that I was trying to record. I was trying to record an episode about time management. And I kid you all not, I've probably recorded this episode like 6 or 7 times. I don't know, at least 6 or 7 times. And every time there was an issue with it. One time, I think the episode just deleted itself. Another time, there was pieces missing from it. Another time, everything got all jumbled up. Finally, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to edit it. I'm just going to put the episode out there unedited. But me being me, I was like, oh, there's like some spaces and some gaps in between it. So I'm going to go back and edit it. And I just got completely frustrated. And I said to myself, you know what? You've put out like 15 episodes. That's pretty good. Let's just take a break and regroup and refocus on everything. And the month of July was great. Like, it was just nice to not plan anything, not try to figure anything out, not to overthink because my brain is just constantly running and just constantly overthinking everything. So it was just nice just to relax. I went to go visit my cousin in Maryland and we had a great time, and she cracked me up because first of all, when she picked me up from the airport, and I just threw my bags in the back seat and then we went out to eat. And so I was like, well, let me put my stuff in the trunk. And she's like, ooh, I don't know if the trunk is going to open. And if it does, I don't know what's in here. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what's in there? I'm already looking at her side eye because there was a hula hoop in the back seat of her car. And I'm like, why is this random hula hoop in here? I'm like, you know what? Never mind. I don't want to know why the hula hoop is in there. And then she opens the trunk and I just look at it. And she's like, yeah, it only gets cleaned out in November when it's time for me to do my Christmas shopping. I was like, let me just throw my bags in here and let's go. And then when we got to her house, she's like, I'm not gonna take you in through the garage because I don't want you to talk about me. And she's like, but you may get a lot of content for your podcast. And I was like, what is wrong with your garage? And she opened it up and I was like, oh my goodness, like why did you do this to me? So I told her, I was like, yeah, I can't wait to sorry about that. And I'm not editing that out either. See, nope, not doing it. Um, but I told her, I was like, yeah, I was like, I'm coming back to visit you. She's like, yay. I was like, and we're gonna organize the garage. She's like, no, never mind, please don't come back. So that was a good time. Went on some trips and stuff, took our son to Raleigh. He loves going to the Kids Marble Museum. I think it's called Marble Kids Museum, but we changed the words around. We call it Kids Marble Museum. And so now I can't like not say Kids Marble Museum. But anyways, if you're ever looking for something fun to do with your kids, the Marble Museum up there is really great. FYI, there are no marbles involved whatsoever. We were really baffled by this the first time we went there, and then we realized I googled it because I have to know things. And so the wall outside of it is made up with over 1 million marbles, I think. And then marbles is another word for brain, so it's like getting kids to use their marbles because it's really like STEM centered and just a lot of different activities for the kids to do. So if you ever need something to do in Raleigh, go check that out. Went skating for the first time in like 13 years. Did not fall. Very proud of myself. Go me. So again, overall, it was just an amazing, relaxing month. Sometimes you just need that time to reset and to regroup. And it just also gave me a chance to kind of think about my podcast and where I wanted to go with that. Like, I started the podcast just because, as I told you all, I always wanted to like have my own talk show and do that. And I just always thought it'd be really cool to start a podcast. I did not think about everything that went into doing a podcast. So my cousin and I have this running joke that I'll text her and I'll be like, hey, I did a thing. And she's like, what did you do? And I'll tell her. And then a couple days later, I'm like, why did you let me do this? And so it was kind of like that with starting the podcast. Like I was like, ooh, I want to start a podcast. I want to start a podcast. And I had been talking about it forever. And finally I'm just like, I'm going to start the podcast. And it was fun recording it. And then I had to edit it. And I was like, I don't know if editing a podcast really goes with my type A personality. Well, I told my husband now that I'm no longer calling myself a type A personality. I'm now a type A minus personality. So I was like, I don't know if this if not editing, is going to go with my type A minus personality. But I've just decided that I'm going to have fun with this podcast. I am not going to overthink it. I'm not going to stress myself out about it or anything like that. I will still be bringing you all organizing tips. It seems that a lot of people really like the organizing tips more than the planning tips. So I am definitely going to focus more on organizing tips and also bringing some people on here to talk about their organization or their disorganization. So yeah, so we'll still do the tips. I'll try to like include like stories in there, like I said, about people and their organization, their disorganization, different tips and tricks that other people do. I do have a couple of guests lined up for these next episodes. I don't know if I want to call it a season or not, because a season typically, you know how many episodes you're going to get. And I'm just not going to put a number out there because I don't want to commit myself to that number. And then I decide to take a break again or something like that. So, I have guests lined up. I have some episode ideas that I want to do. And also when I started this podcast, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was just, of course, organizing and planning, but I also want to talk about like being an entrepreneur and the life of the entrepreneur, because a lot of people just think that being an entrepreneur is just all glitz and glamour and that you just get to do whatever you want and all this rest. And that is so far from the truth. So I did just want to talk about different things that I've learned along the way, or things that I wish that I knew, things that I wish I knew before I got started, just as well as like funny stories about things. So I'll have guests on here for that. But I do kind of want to keep the two separate, because I know that everybody may not be interested in the life of an entrepreneur. And then those who may be interested in the life of an entrepreneur may not be interested in organizing tips. I'm not going to start a whole nother podcast, because that means that I'd have to think of a new name for the podcast and I'd have to do new cover art and all of that stuff. I'm not doing it. So what I'm going to do is I think that I'm going to start doing 2 episodes a week. Don't hold me to that, guys. This is just what I'm thinking right now, is that I'm going to start doing like maybe 2 episodes a week. So the Sunday episode will be the organizing tips. And then another day through the week, I'm thinking about maybe Wednesday will be like when I talk about the entrepreneurship, things like that. And going forward, I just really want this podcast to be more of a conversational piece. Like that's really what I wanted out of the podcast. I didn't want it to seem like I was reading off a script or just trying to figure it out. I just wanted it to kind of go with the flow. And I think, and that's why I'm knocking myself down from a type A personality to a type A minus personality now, because I'm trying to learn to just have fun with things and let go of control and just go with the flow. That really makes me cringe saying that, but just trying to learn to go with the flow and just be in the moment and enjoy it. So this here that I'm saying to y'all is this is it's off the top of my head. I didn't have a script. I just kept thinking about it and I was like, I finally just need to get it out and record it. So that's what I'm doing. So those are some of the changes that are coming down, that are happening. I'm actually getting ready to record with the guest here in a little bit, but I just wanted to get that out there to you all. And again, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has followed the podcast, who has shared the podcast, everyone who's like, oh, I listened to your podcast and I started doing this because the organizing tips, like I really appreciate it. And it just really means a lot to me. And I just hope that you guys keep hanging in there with me and listening to me, even though things are gonna be switched up a little bit, not too much. And again, so hopefully 2 episodes a week. We'll see. I'm gonna try it and we'll see how it goes. And if that doesn't work out, I'll revamp it again, because sometimes you just have to go back to the drawing board until you figure out what actually is working or what's going to work best for you. But you all will definitely get your organizing tips on Sundays. And if it does come down to me taking another break again, I will definitely let you all know, because I know that I don't like it when I'm going to listen to one of my favorite podcasts and it hasn't been any new episodes in 3 weeks. And I'm like, what's going on? So I will always try to give you all notice, if I plan to take a break, if it's something that I can give you notice about, if it's not like anything unexpected. And yeah, so again, I'm excited to just get back in here and start recording again and just seeing where things go with the podcast. Please email me your questions that you have about organizing, or if you have tips about organizing, funny stories about it, or even if you're an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur and you have questions or you have a funny story about that, you can email me. My email address is in the show notes. So all right. Well, thank you all so much. Again, I am excited to be back and recording again. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Please make sure to follow and rate the podcast whenever you listen.